Surrounded by vast farmland and majestic sunsets, Spokane's the largest city in eastern Washington. It's home to Gonzaga University, an abundance of outdoor activities, and the population is booming, including the one at Camp Hope. Organizers say more than 600 homeless people live here in tents, RVs, and all kinds of makeshift structures.
This is the bump into my road, and I'll get through it.
They consider it the state's biggest encampment, just a few miles outside of downtown.
Yeah, walking through this camp is like a maze. There's so many different pathways you can take. So if you're not careful, you can easily get lost.
A lot of people here just want to go to work.
For nearly a week, I experienced firsthand the wide spectrum of the homeless crisis.
Now I've got to go try to get ID, social security card, and all that.
And was reminded again, there is no one-size-fits-all or quick solutions. There's also a giant cooling tent across the street with a hose that stretches all the way to Donna Russell's backyard.
I am not going to turn my back against anybody.
She gets paid by the camp to keep the water flowing 24/7. There are portable toilets, and the city provides weekly trash pickup.
And God can pull them up out of these circumstances.
It's also a one-stop shop for church groups and nonprofits offering a range of services, including meals and medical checkups.
What's the issue?
Robert Moody lives in one of the RVs and leads the volunteer security detail. There are strict rules, banning illegal drug use, stealing, and fighting.
Who gave you the fucking pill?
I also watched him kick out some alleged drug dealers targeting residents.
He's 15 fucking years old.
And for those who violate the rules, there's an area across the street for timeouts.
Welcome to Camp Hope.
Robert Passion's accused of burning down tents at Camp Hope and being problematic. He spent time at Eastern State Hospital, the region's psychiatric institution, but has been out on his own for years. For now, he'll have to live on the field across the street.
Most things that are said about me in there by those people, by some people, they're lies.
I got these from the mill.
Cynthia calls the people here her family and lifeline, but says most days it's still hard because her future is uncertain.
I'm old. I'm alone.
Maurice Smith acknowledges all the challenges and concerns.
Do we have drug addicts? Of course. Do we have mentally ill folks? Yes, we do.
He's the camp's facilities manager and a seminary-trained pastor. Smith says his calling is clear.
We don't want to see anybody die. And so this camp keeps people alive.
Problem is, no one has permission to be here since it's set up on land owned by the Washington State Department of Transportation. And critics say it's spiraling out of control.
We have a number of videos and pictures of them coming onto our property, stealing stuff from our porch.
This is Rico's house.
Nope, get the fuck out of here.
Neighbors and business owners are complaining about a surge in property crimes and retail theft in the area connected to the camp.
I have a building engineer who is cleaning up needles and fecal matter every morning.
Across the street at the Tapio,
what we need to do is keep our front door locked all the time.
Many businesses renting space at this office complex are now adding extra security.
There was a guy with his privates out walking down the sidewalk.
While the vast majority of people here are from Spokane, city officials say a crush of homeless are also moving in from outside the city, including sex offenders and felons with active warrants.
We've had a number of domestic violence, assaults, rapes.
Fire Chief Brian Schaefer says they're constantly responding to drug overdoses.
And then we've had threats made against individual providers, firefighters and paramedics.
We've had...
Assistant Police Chief Justin Lundgren is emphasizing not all homeless are criminals.
Isn't a criminal, never been a criminal.
But says Camp Hope is straining city resources.
We've seen almost a doubling in our calls for service within a quarter-mile radius.
SPD now provides dedicated patrols just for this neighborhood.
There's a lot of prostitution that's going in and out of the camp.
Corporal Erin Blessing says her job is now more complicated than ever.
We want to show compassion, but like I said, what do you do when somebody refuses all services that we offer?
Depending who you ask, the woman being praised or blamed for all this is Julie Garcia.
Where do you want him to go?
She runs Jules Helping Hands, one of several homeless nonprofits in the city.
We will not expand any tents outside of this one block.
This past December, she says all this started off with the best of intentions.
There were no women's beds and no men's beds available. So
Garcia orchestrated a protest outside Spokane City Hall to shame and pressure elected officials into building more housing for people living on the streets. After the city warned of an impending clearing Everyone moved their tents to the WashDOT property.
This camp has more services provided to it than every shelter in this town. And I care for more people in this camp than every shelter in town.
We don't own it.
Bottom line, Mayor Nadine Woodward says this is illegal.
They have held the city hostage.
Woodward is a former local television anchor, but says she's never covered anything like this in her journalism career.
Biggest challenge I think our city is facing right now.
The camp has peaked and it's going to be going down from here.
She recently visited the camp and says they're still trying to broker a reasonable solution.
And appreciate the conversation.
Complicating matters.
This is on their property.
The mayor says she does not have the authority to clear this until WashDOT files a trespass complaint. So far, the agency has not done that and wouldn't tell me why.
They have thrown up their hands and taken no responsibility or accountability.
Instead, pointing me to the signs that make it obvious. A spokesperson declined an on-camera interview but sent me a statement that reads in part, "We do not have law enforcement authority or services. We rely on other jurisdictions." In other words, WashDOT is pointing the finger at City Hall. While elected officials and state leaders continue to play the blame game, frustrated neighbors and business owners say they're caught in the middle of this jurisdictional stalemate.
It just seems to be everywhere.
Katie Brouillet represents a business coalition called Hello for Good and says even if a sweep happened tomorrow, she believes campers would likely overwhelm other parts of Spokane already dealing with encampments.
We don't want to see downtown turn into what all of those other cities' downtowns are that we hear about on the news.
Garcia says the vast majority of campers are willing to take pallet shelters if the city or state would give them land and money to build on the outskirts of the city.
Give me a space and I'll take them there.
Right now, there are more than 1,700 homeless people in Spokane County. That statistic is up 13% in the past 2 years, and it's likely even higher since the last tally only included people in emergency shelters and transitional housing, not on the streets. The mayor hopes her city gets approved for state money to build out a new shelter already in the works not that far from Camp Hope.
There has to be an expectation with those campers.
Even then, there would not be enough beds for all the people living at Camp Hope, and convincing many of them to move in will be another challenge.
I'd rather stay at Martinville.
Why?
Because shelter is it's more drama.
So until a realistic exit strategy is in place, Garcia and Smith believe they still have leverage.
Getting into a homeless camp is a lot easier than getting out of a homeless camp.
At least until the end of the year. But they also don't want to be here forever.
It just takes somebody to encourage them to keep going and believe in them and show them that it can be done.
And how do you prevent this from happening again?
That's a really good question.